Hello there my Jedi and Sith friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars video. It is I coming at you once again, your friend and your favourite galactic hostess, Star Wars Meg. I've really been looking forward to this.
I've been looking forward to this.
I was just out and about doing Star Wars Meg things, and I saw this pop up on my feed, and I realised we've got to talk about it. And I know I like to start my videos by saying that today we have something very different, but as you're going to see my friends, it is true. But just before we dive into it, I just want to start by saying a huge thank you to you guys who watch my videos. You guys in this amazing community who comment, who like, especially at a time where, let's be honest, it's been pretty rough to be a full-time Star Wars content creator. Yes, we've got Star Wars visions and a few books. We're actually going to talk about one of those today. But in terms of the big stuff, it's a-coming. But right now things feel very quiet. Thank you for watching, and thank you for being part of this amazing community. But no more jibber jabber my friends, let's dive straight into it. So, today, something pretty hilarious happened. I'm by no means someone who roots for the demise of Star Wars in any way, shape or form, but this was pretty funny. And I can't tell if this is really embarrassing for Lucasfilm, or if they're in on the joke, and they're just trying to acknowledge something which we all know happened. They can't just sweep it under the rug. So what in the world are we talking about? Well, one of the biggest Disney and Lucasfilm failures in recent years has to be the now defunct Galactic Starcruiser Hotel. Do you guys remember this? Do you guys remember those ads? And I know this has been discussed to death, but it's just gotten so much worse. What was supposed to be an immersive luxury Star Wars experience ended up being a ridiculously overpriced and underwhelming glamorized hotel with a vague Star Wars overlay, which by the way, solely focused on the sequel time period, when you're talking about onboard stories and activities, the reenactments with Rey and Kylo. I believe those were all set post-episode 8, in between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. To make things worse, the amount Disney invested in this hotel was absolutely astronomical, and they made tie-in books and comics which all centered around the Halcyon legacy. It's easy to forget that for a minute, this was a pretty big deal in Star Wars canon, even intersecting with Han and Leia's honeymoon. Not the one from the expanded universe, the version they wrote for modern canon. But despite this investment, they decided not to opt for prequel trilogy tie-ins, original trilogy experiences. There were suggestions they should do immersive experiences with a Jedi Temple, or choose your own adventure if you want to choose the light or the dark sides. The possibilities were endless, but they really cocked it up. And so, it ended up closing just 18 months after its grand opening. And for a while, Lucasfilm was very quiet about it. They swiftly tried to move on from the situation. And yet, viral videos made it infamous, documenting the Starcruiser's rather remarkable failure. And I think it's safe to say, in the aftermath, there was only one question on the lips of fans. What were they thinking? As an overall concept, the Starcruiser was a great idea, but at every turn they botched the execution. And while certain influencers did praise their experience, the reality is that it was insanely overpriced. It was absurd to charge thousands of dollars for this kind of resort. No real immersion, no outdoor activities, no swimming pool, and on top of this, those who still wanted to go were priced out. Oh yes, my friends, in spite of the backlash, there were still fans who wanted to experience the Starcruiser alone, or with their partners, or with their families. They just couldn't afford to do so. And looking at their business model, let's be honest, this was never going to succeed. And sequel trilogy stuff aside, because those films do have their fans, the immersion just didn't feel Star Warsy enough. Even in their trailers, which are supposed to have some exaggeration and are generally supposed to allure fans to want to go. Well, today, my friends, in an astonishing twist, Lucasfilm has officially addressed the closure of the Starcruiser with an in-universe canon explanation. Because the ship exists within the Star Wars universe, they finally gave an excuse, a cope, as to why it's been closed. Now I don't know about you guys, but I think this is pretty darn hilarious, and I know I'm not the only one. So their reasoning comes in their latest literary offering, the young adult romance titled Eyes Like Stars. This is set during the sequel era, and has some pretty big surprises. I spoke about the Gorman connection in a separate video, but it turns out, Lucasfilm also decided to give the Starcruiser a fitting farewell. So, what did they say? Well, the book focuses on a protagonist whose father owns a starline company which includes the Halcyon Chandrilla Starline. And they say, quote, "Rumor has it they closed up shop due to budget cuts." I wonder if Lucasfilm is genuinely being tongue-in-cheek about this. Is this their way of saying that we know we messed up? It's an interesting book to put this in, because like with the Gorman thing, the novel tries to answer a lot of questions. It attempts to tie up a lot of loose ends. For instance, the ruins of Alderaan are addressed. It's not the first place this has been mentioned in canon, but they make a point to talk about some of the original trilogy planets. Well, now we know that Alderaan, which was destroyed in A New Hope, is a tourist destination. It features a monument to honor the planet's deceased population. The planet was obliterated, but the debris field that remains has been referred to as the Graveyard of Alderaan. In the middle of it sits a space station, cobbled together from misplaced pieces of junk. They also confirm something pretty surprising, which is that the planets of Hoth and Dantooine are described as unsafe. It's implied they've been taken over by the First Order. They might be First Order bases. We also get some other pretty fascinating reveals. For instance, the fact that most of the galaxy knows how the First Order came about. They mention the remnants in the unknown regions, who gathered together and pounced when the time was right. The Supreme Leader is also well known, but is not very popular across the galaxy. He's described as a fascist, and it's worth noting he's often mocked. At one point, the character of Cian refers to him as your cute little Supreme Leader. There are also connections to Kylo Ren, who makes a brief appearance, Maz Kanata, Luke's lightsaber, General Hux, and we know the origins of Palpatine's mural from Revenge of the Sith. He got it on Malachor. But returning to our main point, we're coming up to 3 years since the Starcruiser closed, and Josh D'Amaro, who was working on the project, who is now Disney CEO, has suggested that while the hotel failed, there might be plans to repurpose it, saying, quote, "Not everything is gonna work, but what did work is that we took storytelling and creativity to completely new levels. It didn't work commercially, but something will happen. Does that mean something will come of this project? Or they're just going to move on?" And I will say the closure itself was not too much of a shock. Lots of insiders theorized that this would be the outcome. I'm honestly just very surprised that in this new novel, they brought light to it again. And since the Starcruiser closed, both Disney and Lucasfilm have made huge changes. New creative directions, new trajectories, and I suppose this is their way of saying farewell to something which, honestly, was dead on arrival. And more than anything, it just feels like a wasted opportunity. It's not even one of those instances where you can ask, what went wrong? Because the reality is that it wasn't just one thing. And we can talk about the marketing all day, which honestly was some of the worst we've seen in recent years, but there you go. Lucasfilm readdresses it, and in universe we know why it's been defunct, due to budget cuts. But what do you guys think? Share your thoughts on this and everything we spoke about in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, check me out on socials, and may the Force be with you, always.